Your Excellency and distinguished guests. On the 11th of the 11th, 1918, the big guns of Europe fell silent. After 4 years of pounding the eardrums and the flesh of all those who strayed near, it was all over. And though these guns were half a world away from New Zealand, their reverberations were felt here. The war began for New Zealand on the 6th of August, 1914. And this year, 2014, we begin a 5-year program of commemoration, marking all the important milestones: the outbreak of war, the Anzac landings, the Battle of the Somme, Passchendaele, Armistice Day, and the Treaty of Versailles. So today, I want to talk about that war and what it meant for us as New Zealanders. And given the significance of the number 100, I want to focus on the first 100 days of our involvement. For just over 100 days of entering the war, did we suffer our first casualty, Private William Ham of the Nelson Company, and all of a sudden the war changed. As one serviceman said, "I thought it'd be a great adventure, and it'd be real fun." And so it was, up to a point. Past that point, it wasn't funny at all. For 100,444 New Zealanders served our country from a population of just over 1 million. Nearly every family in New Zealand was involved, be it a husband, a brother, or a son. Many of these husbands, these brothers, these sons left for overseas and simply never came home. And many of those lost were young men, more ardent for adventure than altruistic in intent. For this was a terrible war. A war which stole a generation of our best and our finest and shattered the lives of those they left behind. And that first 100 days began on the 16th of October, 1914, when we sent 10 troop ships, bearing 8,454 men across the Tasman Sea to link up with the Australians. Whilst all those who undertook this journey have now passed away, we still have their journal accounts of this trip. Each one provides this fascinating insight into the privations experienced on board, dealing with the heat, the horses, the boredom. But what struck me most was the underlying sense of excitement that each man felt, that the deprivations were a transitory inconvenience rather than a reality of war. The descriptions of the local sights of Cairo, the camels, the date trees, the exotic woman, read more as a holiday narrative rather than a narrative of war. But the tone of these journals changed. When just over 100 days of entering the war, did we suffer our first casualty? It came at the defense of the Suez Canal, 3rd of February 1915. 100 New Zealand soldiers kept Turkish infantry on the opposite side of the canal at bay with a steady, close-range fusillade. They were later commended for their efforts, especially given that they only had rifles at their disposal, for due to an operational oversight, the machine guns had been left at camp, 10 miles away. And in the skirmish, a soldier was hit. Private William Ham of the Nelson Company, an ideal soldier in action splendid. A chance bullet ricocheted off his rifle and struck his neck, breaking his spine. He died of his wounds on February the 5th, 1915. 100 years ago, life was very different. Yet the similarities to today are striking. The young still thirst for adventure. Peace is still challenged by pugilism. And one bullet does as much damage as ever. The defense of the Suez Canal was soon to lose its significance, when in the next 100 days did our country suffer far greater losses at that infamous Gallipoli Peninsula. After the evacuation from Gallipoli, our troops were sent to Belgium and to France on the Western Front, the place where most New Zealanders saw action and the place where most New Zealanders died. And in the 100 years since that time, more than 30,000 New Zealanders have joined Private Ham in giving their lives in service. They have served us and they have sacrificed all over the world, under the blazing suns of the desert, through the deepest jungles of Malaya, on the slopes of Monte Cassino, through the muddy fields of Flanders, and in the cold rivers of Italy. But when our commemorations begin this year, we remember not only their sacrifice, but their gift. They gave us the underpinning values of this nation, the values of courage, of commitment, of comradeship, of compassion. Milestones become millstones, if not perceived to hold value. But this year's milestone, if it is any stone, then surely it is Pounamu, treasured, valued, of national significance. Pounamu was used to build the memorial wall at the National Army Museum in Waiouru. And like that memorial wall, the commemorations which begin this year are an opportunity to pause and to reflect upon those who have served us in war. So, to Cyril Bassett, under whose image we're gathered today, to Private William Ham of the Nelson Company, and to all the brave New Zealanders in the past 100 years who gave their lives in conflict so that we may live ours in peace. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember you. Thank you.